You're listening to the Music Tech Teacher podcast, episode number 54. Welcome to the Music Tech Teacher podcast. Music tech tips, lesson ideas, advice, news, and interviews, especially for music teachers. Brought to you by midnightmusic.com.au. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Music Tech Teacher podcast. I'm Katie Wardrobe, a music technology education trainer, speaker and consultant from midnightmusic.com.au, where I help music teachers use technology effectively in music education. Now, a little while ago, I asked the members of my email newsletter list to suggest some topics for upcoming podcast episodes. Now, if you would like to nominate something for a future show, I'll actually add a link to the show notes page for this episode so that you can let me know any ideas. I had some responses, and one of the most popular topic requests was productivity tips. Now, I actually did a couple of podcast episodes about using technology to improve productivity a little while back. They were actually episodes number 7 and 8, I think, from memory, and I'll link to those in the show notes page if you'd like to go back and listen to those original ones. In those episodes, I talked about the technology tools that you can use, some of the ones that I use, in fact, to be more productive and the ways that they can help you out. Today, I thought I would cover some more productivity tips, but they're going to be a little bit more general. They're not really tech dependent as such, and they are things that I do myself personally in my everyday life to help me achieve more and use my time more wisely. Now, although you can use technology for these things, it's more to do with changing habits and routines or systems and that type of thing. And I will mention some technology options along the way to help you do those things, but it's definitely more about the mindset and the change in habits, routines and systems. I was a little bit worried that sharing all of this might make me sound a little bit crazy, OCD maybe. I don't know. Just to remember that I've been doing these and adding these into my daily life over a long period of time. It's not like I set out one day and just changed everything I was doing. Each week or month or so, I kind of think about how can I improve things? How can I make things more streamlined or save time here and there? And over time, I've done all the things that I'm going to mention in today's episode. Now, I've made a list of these things in case you like the sound of any of them and think they might help you and you want to try them out. You can download that list at the show notes page for this episode, which is midnightmusic.com.au/54. So let's get started. Now, as someone who is a solo parent to 2 boys and run my own business full time, being organised and productive is an absolute necessity. This is not something I do just because it's fun, although I do enjoy some aspects of this, but it's truly a necessity in order for me to survive my life and to, stay a little bit sane. So I find that when things are organised for me, I'm much more calm. I feel a bit more in control. I feel a sense of achievement when I get things done and by the end of the day. And really organising things for me means adopting new or better habits, changing patterns of behaviour or maybe processes that I have in place, really so that I don't have to think so much. It's so that I can think less and make fewer decisions on a daily basis about the things that I need to do. Now, I'm not perfect at all. The things that I'm going to mention in the episode, you might think, oh my gosh, does she do that all the time? No, I fall off the wagon from time to time, but I really do regret it when I do that. And I get a lot less done. I feel frustrated and things tend to slip through the cracks. And that, I really don't like that feeling. It makes me feel more stressed. If I suddenly remember in the middle of the night something I've forgotten to do, it's usually because I have not followed a process that I put in place for myself. And when I say process, it's not like this big official thing. It's like just a thing that I've worked out for myself. Now, the key for me is to get back to the habits or the processes or systems that I had in place in the first place so that I can feel happy and calm again and particularly happy with what I get done in a day. One of my least favourite things is to get to the end of the day and feel regret or frustration because I didn't get kind of like substantial things done. I feel like the day's just completely escaped from me. I really hate those days. So the bottom line is, though, that everybody in the world has the same number of hours in a day or in a week, and it's really about how you choose to spend them. You need to prioritize the things that you want to spend your time on and be really mindful about the way you are spending your time. It's totally fine to spend 2 hours watching a show on Netflix if that's the choice that you've made with that time at on that particular day or that particular point in the week. Absolutely fine. But it's when you get to the end of the 2 hours of watching Netflix, if you were supposed to do something else or should be doing something else, that's when you feel regret and, annoyance at yourself perhaps, or at least that's what it's like for me. Now, I have also learnt to avoid that victim mentality of saying, I never have enough time to do this, or I can't possibly fit that in, or I can't do that additional thing in the week. Really, you do, because as I said, we all have the same amount of time, but you need to kind of maybe reframe the thought pattern and say, instead of doing this with my time, I'm going to choose to spend my time available to me in a different way. And that really involves prioritizing the things that you truly want to do. So thinking about why you want to be more organised might help you in the first place. So my top motivators, as I mentioned, are to feel more calm, to feel less stressed, and to fit the things into my week that I really want to do. So time with my family, or maybe learning something new, or even just getting work done that I need to get done. Things that you might like to do that you're not already. Perhaps, I know some of you are interested in doing things like starting a Teachers Pay teacher store, and that, is time consuming, but totally possible if that's the thing that you prioritise. Starting a website or a blog, same kind of thing. That might be something you're interested in doing. For professional development, you might want to learn something new ideas for class that you're going to use with your students. Maybe you want to learn a new software program, a new app, how to use that on your iPad, some kind of tech tool perhaps. You might want to learn a different instrument, a new instrument to you. So all of those things might be your motivators, and it's really good to sort of have that in the back of your mind. What do you really want to achieve in the week? Now, during the episode, I'm going to talk about 5 different areas that you can tackle to improve your productivity and perhaps spend your time better in order to fit those things in. So the 5 areas are going to be, the first one is importance of respecting your time and planning how you use it. The second one is going to be to do with emails, everyone's favourite thing, emails. And I'm actually going to talk about incoming emails and also ways to better deal with outgoing emails too. I'm going to talk about social media, the other favourite for everyone, time-sucking thing that one is. I want to talk about batching similar tasks together. And lastly, talk about outsourcing, so getting someone else or something else to do a task for you. So let's start with the first one, which is respecting your time. Now, your time really has a value on it, and that value might be monetary. So, for me, I work for myself, and I know if I'm doing things that perhaps I shouldn't do, or I'm wasting time when I should be working, it kind of has a dollar value. So I could be earning money during that time or doing things to help me earn money. Now, that might be true for you in what you do. If you've got a teaching job that you're paid full-time for or part-time, it may not matter so much hour by hour because you get paid anyway, but you're accountable. You need to go and turn up to your class and do the things. And in order to run those classes better, organising your time can be a really big benefit. But, you need to think about how you're going to use that time. It really helps me to avoid wasting time. And if I plan really carefully what I'm going to do the next day or in the next few days, there's less of me wasting time flapping around wondering what I'm going to do. I'm busy all the time, so I can really easily get into that mode of, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do and I don't know where to start, and therefore I just won't do anything. If I have planned my time ahead and I know what I'm going to do in the next day or the next few days, I get a lot more done because I have a clear plan laid out for me. Flapping around, not knowing what to do. I'm not sure if you're with me on this one, but I used to watch, what was the show? The Goodies growing up. I have come from an English family and we watched a lot of English television growing up, even though we lived in Australia. And the Goodies show had one of the characters, I think it was the one, well, Tim, who was in the show, and he used to get panicky and flap around saying, I'm a teapot, I'm a teapot. And that's what I have in my head, or that's the picture I have in my head if I'm getting a little bit frantic and not knowing what to do. So to avoid that feeling, plan for the next day or the next few days. Now, the plan can include the fun things, the leisure things, the frivolous things if you want it to, but having a plan in place makes you actually relax more during those times, because you know you've also taken care of the things that you have to do or should do. So for me, what does this look like? It looks like having a calendar out. I will look at my upcoming week and I will usually work out vaguely what I'm going to do on the 5 days of the week, the working week. And that might be that I'm going to record podcast episodes one day, I'm going to present at a conference on another day, I'm going to write new course materials on another day, or whatever it looks like that particular week. For you, you might have less control over what your calendar looks like during your working day because you're working to a school calendar, a school schedule, and that's going to lay out the classes you're going to teach and so on. But you do have the evening time and the before work time that you can choose what you're going to do in that space. Now, I will usually write down, I'll have a vague idea for the whole week of the sorts of things I want to achieve in the week, but I will get a little bit more granular for the following day. So usually at night time, I really try to think about the things that I want to achieve the next day, and I will write them down, and I'll often have a schedule in place. Now, at one stage, I went to the extreme of scheduling out pretty much every half an hour time slot in my day. It just didn't work. It worked for a short time, and sometimes I might do that for the odd day here and there if I really, really want to get things done and be very ninja about how I spend my time. But it can be a bit stressful having every minute planned for, and it's difficult to leave space for when things go wrong. So you might get rung up from school because your child's sick and you have to go and pick them up, and then suddenly all of those things you planned can't get done. So my way now of approaching it is to have 2 or 3 things that I really want to get done in a day, and then maybe a few optional things that if I've got time, I'll do that. But I will always work out in the morning, this will be this task, and in the afternoon after lunch, I'll do, these other 2 things. I've learnt also to try to leave a bit of space in the plan so that if things do take longer or unexpected things come up, I can still carry out the day without getting completely off the rails, which is always a danger too. So writing the plan down somewhere, for me, is the key. Writing it down, I actually often do this just on a piece of paper with a pencil. But you could also use a digital format as well, maybe in your calendar itself or in some kind of note-taking app or task management system. The other thing I find is really useful ahead of the next day is to get my things ready. So that includes a few areas in my house. Because I work from home, I try to make sure that my work desk space is relatively tidy and clean. Things are where they should be. I'm not missing something crucial for the next day. I make sure anything that I'm going to use is there and set up and ready. For instance, if I was going to record a podcast episode early in the morning, which I do particularly when I'm interviewing people from overseas, I'm often doing that at 6:30 in the morning. So I definitely make sure it's all set up the night before, and I make sure the microphone's plugged in, and I've restarted my laptop recently, and all those little things that will make it run more smoothly the next day. If I'm exercising in the morning, going for a run, I will try to remember to lay out my running gear. That motivates me much more than if I don't do that. If I've sort of got that out of, where are the runners, or where's the clean shorts or singlet to wear, I lay things out the night before and it's all there ready for when I wake up in the morning. The kitchen also being tidy makes the morning run more smoothly with my kids. All of those things can really help. And, if you're heading off to teach at school for the day, you might just get your things ready to take with you in the morning. So they might be all packed up. And this is actually something I do if I'm catching an early morning flight somewhere. Everything is packed the night before. It's by the door. Suitcase is got everything in it except my laptop because I leave that on the charge, and I just unplug that at the last moment and pop it in. So those things are really useful for me to make my day run much more smoothly. The other thing I do during the day, and this is to do with the scheduling and fitting things in, is that at any given time I have a little bit of a list, and for me it's just a mental list, but sometimes I will write it down, a list of things that I can do during unexpected pockets of time. Now, I find that there are lots of little pockets of time in your day where it might only be 5 or 10 minutes, and in the past I've sort of thought, well, that's not long enough to do anything useful or substantial, so I'll just hop on Facebook and kill time. But I actually changed my attitude to those little pockets of time, and I found that if I had in my head something I could do, so for me it would be like maybe planning a podcast episode, or it could be thinking about a new course that I want to create. For you, it might be planning a specific lesson that you've got coming up, or brainstorming ideas for repertoire for a concert or something like that, where it's really useful a task to do. And if you can just make a start on it in these pockets of time, you'll actually find you get through more stuff much more quickly. So I started using these. What I did was start to carry around a physical notebook and pen always with me. I've got a spiral back notebook, which is, like in Australia we have A4 size, so that's how big it is, and a pen handy. Just keep a list handy in my head of the things that I could do. And often I would actually handwrite the thing I was working on. So planning a podcast episode as an example, I would just handwrite bullet points of things that I want to cover or things that I'm going to cover in an interview with someone. Now, I could only get so much done in 10 minutes, but I actually found that you can plan the whole episode. Like that was it. It was done. And then when I got back to my desk later on that day or the next day, I could work on it more fully or actually do the recording. Now, these pockets of time for me fall into things like when I arrive 10 minutes early to pick up my son from school, and I've got just 10 minutes, I'm sitting there in the car. It doesn't seem like a lot of time, but it's enough for me to do the planning of a whole podcast episode or outline part of a course that I'm working on. For you, it might be other times like, someone's running late that you're due to meet. And this is something that happens to me. Someone's running late and you're meeting at a coffee shop. I just use that 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is to do something worthwhile rather than just kill time on social media. I've found that all of those little pockets of time really add up. If you have 2 or 3 in a day, that might be a whole half hour or hour of your time that you think that you don't actually have. Really useful. I think of it like bonus time. So that's the planning part. Those things have all really helped me over time. If I stick to those things, planning ahead of time, my days run more smoothly. I'm much more productive. Let's move on to everyone's favourite, which is dealing with emails. Now, I know they're so hard, they're so horrible, and for everyone, they're pretty much a massive problem and a huge time suck. And a few years ago, I really tried to have a massive overhaul of the way I dealt with emails. And this is work emails and personal emails and everything in between. And I did a few things where nowadays things are much better. It's not perfect and it still requires me to do some stuff, but I find that if I kind of keep on track of all these things that I've put into place, all these systems, emails are a much better thing, and I'm not drowning in, an inbox with 300 that are unread or unanswered. So the first thing is to deal with the incoming emails. Now, incoming emails, I know that you're thinking, wow, I get so many in a day, I can't possibly deal with them all in a day. My advice is to stop as many of them coming in the first place as possible. Now, obviously you can't do that if it's colleagues that you work with or administration at your school. You can't really just say, hey, I don't want your emails anymore. But there are a lot of emails I can guarantee in your inbox that you could prevent coming in. Now, the first thing to look at is subscriptions to local shops that you've visited and you've joined up to their, what do you call it, frequent buyer program or loyalty program, whatever that is. You might be on a list where they send you promotions about sales and, upcoming offers. Really, I would advise you to think really hard as to whether you actually need those coming in. I decided to unsubscribe from every single one of them, everything. My theory in the end was that really, if I need to know the information, it will somehow come to me if it's that type of information. The subscriptions to shops and other things that you purchase, I decided with those that I would go and seek out the discount information when I wanted to buy that product. So as an example, if I was subscribed to getting updates from a shop that sells linen and homewares, there's only a couple of times in a year that I actually want to go and buy linen for my bed or, a new cushion or something like that. I really don't need to see their emails every week. So I unsubscribed from all of those types of shops and thought when I'm actually going to go and buy something, I'll go looking and seeing who has discounts at that time, who's got a sale running. The sale times are fairly predictable in the year anyway. You can guess that before Christmas there is going to be a sale, before Mother's Day, or before Father's Day, all of those times, if I want to go and buy anything that's a female type product, and that could be perfume, jewellery, clothing. I know for me when I'm recording this now, we're a week before Mother's Day here in Australia and there are lots of sales on. So I save up the things like that for those times of year where I know there's going to be a sale on. I don't need to receive the email every week telling me that there's something going on in their store. So the first thing you can do is open up one of the emails that you've received from the store or from the product. You scroll down to the very bottom and there should be a link to unsubscribe. It will say it probably in very small letters and it will usually be at the very, very, very bottom of the email, but it will be there somewhere. Most companies have this, most businesses have this. So you scroll down, you look for that link, you click on it. Occasionally you'll need to re-enter your email address. The nice ones will not require you to do that. They just know because you've opened the email and clicked on the link. It will say you are now unsubscribed. Occasionally it will ask you for a reason for unsubscribing. That is nearly always an optional step, so don't feel you have to fill that in, but I usually let them know, hey, I'm just not interested at the moment, or I'm getting too many emails, whatever it is. So unsubscribe from as many things as you can. There are a couple of things that you can do if you don't want to manually go into each one, and I did actually manually go into each one. So every time I got an email afresh from a company that I was subscribed to, I would just unsubscribe, and then I would know that would stop the flow from that point onwards. Now, there's a service that I used to use called Unroll Me, and you can actually sign up to that and it will kind of identify for you all of the subscriptions that you have, and you can go down a single web page where it has a list of all your subscriptions and you can basically check them all off and say, please unsubscribe me from all of these. Or the other alternative is that you can get a rolled up email which contains like a digest list of all the links that have come to you within a day or a week. You can get it sent to you, say, once a day, and it will roll up 5 different shop emails that you're receiving, usually individually. You can roll them up all into one email. I started off with that option and then I thought, you know what, I actually just need to not see this at all. So I unsubscribed from them. Unsubscribing via Unroll Me, the last time I used it, it kind of stops them coming to your inbox. I don't think you're truly unsubscribed from the company itself. So I decided in the end to do the manual thing. So I just keep unsubscribing every time I've got another email come in. So that's one thing that I do. The other thing that you can do to help your inbox inflow, the incoming emails, is to set up some filters. Now, I use Gmail as the place where I look and check emails. It's all run through Gmail. And Gmail has a thing called filters. Now, I don't know with other email service providers whether this is an option in the other ones as well, but you could certainly look into this. And Gmail, the great thing about it is that you can identify an email source, and this might be one that you actually want to keep, but you just don't need to see in your inbox every day. So these for me are subscriptions to people who I find really helpful for my business. For instance, I want to subscribe to their newsletter, but I don't really need to see every individual email come into my inbox every, week or every couple of days. So what you can do is set up a filter which basically tags a certain email with some information. So you might tag it with subscription, and you can then set up Gmail to send it straight off to a folder and skip your inbox altogether. Now, I've called it a folder. It behaves like a folder. It's actually not really truly called a folder in Gmail. I think it's called a tag or a label. No, label is correct, I think. But the best thing is that it skips my inbox, goes straight to this label, and it's basically like viewing a folder in Outlook. I can see a list down the left-hand side of my screen, and at any time I can click on that and just read all of the newsletters from that person. I can do that once a month if I want to, but they don't sort of bother me as they come in. Now, I've also got filters set up for other things like receipts that are for things that I pay on a regular basis where I don't really need to check the receipt. I kind of need to keep it, but I don't really need to see it, and I don't need it filling up my inbox. I have filters set up to send those receipts or invoices straight to a label, so I don't see it at all, but it's there if I need to check it. I can go through for my, for tax purposes and go and look at the information there. So those things are really useful for taking control of your incoming emails, and I can highly recommend trying to stop them coming in the first place. That's a really good thing. The other thing is that I know a lot of people, and I do this still a little bit, I know a lot of people leave emails in their inbox because you need to do something. You need to action something to do with that email. It's basically like a task sitting there for you to do. Now, I heard people talking about, the fact that you shouldn't use your inbox as a to-do list or a task manager. And I kind of thought, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to still do it anyway. But since I've tried doing it the other way, which is when I get an email which requires some sort of action, I actually create a task in my task management software or my task, my to-do list, and I get rid of the email from my inbox because I just need to do something with it. I don't need to actually keep the email there. Getting rid of it out of the inbox, again, it contributes to me feeling more calm because my inbox is not cluttered and full anymore. So that's really useful. I find that a really good method. Try it out for yourself. Look, it may not work for you. You may prefer to keep things in your inbox that need something doing to them. That's totally fine. Even when I find it's an email I need to reply to with, I need to do a task and then reply with the information or with the, the details, I still put it in my task management software, get rid of the email out of my inbox for the moment, and I can always really easily find it again in order to reply or to send a fresh email. Other things that have worked for me really well in recent times is to not look at my email throughout the day. It really does hijack your time. Everything in your inbox that's coming in to your inbox, pretty much, maybe 90%, is to do with other people's agendas, other people's questions, what other people want to know of you or want you to do for them. And it really does hijack your time. So what I do is I pick 1 or 2 time slots in a day. It might be first thing in the morning. It might be straight after lunch. I've just had lunch and I'm sort of getting back into work mode, had a little break. That's a great time to just knock off a few emails. I will try and do that. I often also set a timer. It's a half an hour time slot and that's it. Answer as many as possible and then I close the email and don't look at it anymore. It's way too much of a distraction for those times when you want to get the really good stuff done, the chunky stuff, the substantial stuff, the things that you actually want to do. There are lots of other email tips, but I'll just stop at those ones for incoming emails. I do want to mention outgoing emails though. And the things that I've found have really helped with my productivity with outgoing emails is to use templates. And I'm pretty sure I might have mentioned this in one of those earlier podcast episodes. but I use templates for things that I need to send, which are the same on a regular basis. And templates pop up for my business, obviously. If someone emails me and says, hey, I'd like to book you for a workshop, there's the same specific bits of information I need from that person. So it's much more handy to have a template set up, and I can just tailor it to them and send it back and get the information that I need without reinventing the wheel each time. My eldest son is playing basketball, and for the last 3 seasons, I've been the team manager, which just involves simply sending a reminder email out to all the parents about the upcoming game time, a reminder about training perhaps, or anything else that we need to communicate to one another. And I have a template set up for that. It's the same template every single week that I send. And I actually do this through some software called Text Expander, which I love, 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 which allows me to set up the template in Text Expander with boxes that I fill out. And the boxes that I fill out are the bits of the email that change each week. So in the basketball match example, the reminder email, it basically says, hi everyone, this week's match is at, and then there's a box for me to fill out. We are playing box, and that one is the team name, at, and there's the time. So there's the time, the venue, and the team that we're playing against. Those are all boxes that I fill out for each week, but the rest of the email stays the same. And I also fill out who's the family that is on the roster to score for the game that week. So what happens is I open up a new email and I basically type in a 3-letter shortcut into the body of the email, and that triggers Text Expander to bring up my little template, and it actually comes up in a floating window. When I type into that, when I have the template open in front of me, the first thing is that the cursor is automatically inside the first box that I need to fill out. So I type in, I think the first one is the team name. We're playing such and such a team. And then I press tab and it takes me to the next team, the next empty box, and I fill out the venue, and then the next empty box is the time. And the last one, I tab across and I fill out the scoring family, and then I press enter or return, and it puts the contents of that floating window straight into the email, and I hit send, and it's just done. It's so super fast. I even have basically all of the email addresses for the families that I need to send that to, they are also saved in Text Expander. So when I first open up a fresh email, I click in the box where it's who I'm sending to, and I press a 3-letter shortcut, which I've set up myself, press enter, and all the email addresses pop in automatically. So if you can imagine, perhaps you're organising a music group for rehearsals each week or performance that's coming up, and you have the email addresses saved somewhere. You could pop them all into Text Expander. You can do your little shortcut to populate the to field, or maybe the blind copy field if you need to keep it private. You could then have the main body of the email set up with all the information that you need to send them, and it's usually the same each time. Turn up at this place at this time and wear this outfit, and please bring XYZ, whatever it is that they need to bring. You could set that all up, and it's quite a quick thing. Responses to parents as well about, the same questions that you get asked a lot. Frequently asked questions is a great place to start for this. And it just takes you spending just a few minutes setting them up in Text Expander once only. And after that, you save time every time you fill out an email or use Text Expander to populate something for you. So I highly recommend checking that out. Text Expander used to be Mac only, I believe, as a software tool, but recently they've changed it so that it's a web-based tool, and so it works now across Windows and Mac and also devices as well, so iPad, iPhone, Android devices and so on. So totally recommend checking that out. That's one of my favourite productivity tools ever. This episode of the Music Tech Teacher podcast is brought to you by the Midnight Music Community. The Midnight Music Community is an online space for music teachers who'd like help using technology in their music lessons. There are online courses, video tutorials, lesson plans, music tech news, and professional development certificates are provided for any training that you undertake. I'm inside the community every day, personally answering members' questions and sharing tips and ideas. The best thing is that you get to connect with hundreds of other music teachers just like you and share your own experiences and occasional music tech frustrations. For more information and a special joining price just for the listeners of this podcast, visit midnightmusic.com.au/podcast offer. That's midnightmusic.com.au/podcast offer. All right, onto social media, everyone's other favourite. It's a love-hate relationship, isn't it, with this one, really? And the key for me, I found, is to reduce or limit or control the way that I spend my time on social media. Now, I went through a stage where I didn't find that it was affecting me too much. I didn't find that I was getting sucked into it too much. But to be honest, in the last couple of years, I really do find that I get that feeling of being mesmerised by scrolling, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, and I can feel my brain change. Now, I don't know if this is normal. I'm guessing this affects some people in the same sort of way, but I can feel it's quite hypnotic in a way. So if I'm on for 5 or 10 minutes, not a problem, all good. If I'm on for longer than that, I get into this hypnotic state of scrolling and it's hard to drag yourself away. And it's not how I want to spend my time. I have better things to do. I love connecting with people on those social media platforms like everyone else does, but I really have learnt to totally control and limit the time that I spend on them. So a few things you can do. The first thing is, if you think that you're not spending a lot of time on social media and you want to kind of find out how much time you actually spend, or even where you spend all of your time generally when you're online, as in on your laptop or on your phone, there's some software and apps that can help you track that. Now, it's kind of scary. I'm going to be honest here. It's kind of scary. If you set this going, put it onto your laptop, it will tell you, hey, this week you spent 5 hours on Facebook and 3 hours doing emails and 4 hours doing the stuff that you really wanted to do. So it's eye-opening and very useful, and you might just want to try it out. So one of the tools, as an example, is called Rescue Time, and it can just be useful to run this for a while and see what happens, see what it looks like, get a little bit scared, and then make some changes. Maybe you'll find that you're totally okay with what it tells you about how you're spending your time. Anyway, that's one option for you. I believe there are apps that do the same sort of thing on your phone as well. You can work out where you're spending your time in apps on your phone. I haven't really done that. I know already that there's a little bit too much time, well, in the past there has been too much time on social media, and I've taken steps to change what I do to control it. So the first thing that I do, and I heard this from another podcast that I listened to called Straight and Curly, a couple of Australian girls who run that one. And one of the hosts of that show mentioned in passing one day that on an episode that she deletes the Facebook app during the work week. And I kind of thought, oh, why have I not thought of that before? That's a brilliant idea. So every single Sunday night, without fail, every week, I delete the Facebook app from my phone and I reinstall it on Friday. So deleting the app, it does nothing to your account. It's fine. You can come back to it whenever you want to. You may need to log in again. Totally fine once again. Not hard to do. So I do the thing. I hold my finger on my iPhone, make all the apps jiggle and press the cross and it deletes the app. Now, this just helps me stay away from it more. You know, I found that I was using it more than I wanted to be during the week. And once again, if I have that pocket of time where I could be doing something useful for 10 minutes, the temptation is there. If it's on my phone, I'll just check Facebook for one of the minutes, but it never ends up being 1 minute, always ends up being the 10. So I delete it during the week and it's really good. It's a lot more peaceful and I'm not sucked into looking at it. So on a Friday, the only reason I do put it back on my phone during the weekend is that the running group that I'm part of, most of our events or training runs are organised through Facebook. So I need it on there. It's just easier for me to work out what we're doing and where we're meeting and how far we're running and what the map is and all of that sort of thing, which we all plan ahead of time. Now, I don't ban myself completely from Facebook at all during the work week. I just take the app off my phone because that was the thing I was finding was too tempting. I do pop on during the week, but I will use my laptop, open up a tab, and the thing that I try to do is to set a timer. The other thing I try to do, and I haven't done this very well yet, but I'm sure I'm going to get there one day, is I often go into the Facebook app on my laptop because of a specific reason. It's usually because I need to look up the information about an event that I'm going to, or it might be perhaps the running group information that I need, or more specifically and more frequently is that I need to get on there to check my work business page and, just reply to comments or questions. People message me sometimes through that page. I need to get in there and answer those messages. I am not perfect at that at all. Sometimes it's a few days and I apologise, but I'm trying to get better at that and be more on top of it so that it's not a day or two before I do that. It's the same day. So I don't ban myself from Facebook, but what I do is set a timer as mentioned, and also I try to, before I open it, write down the thing that I was going there for in the first place. This is a huge key for me because if I open it up without writing it down, I will get distracted, 10 minutes go by, and then I think, what on earth did I come here for in the first place? And then it takes me about another 10 minutes to remember that, and then I go back to Facebook and then distraction again. So I try to write it down first, then open it up, get in there and do that thing first. If I have some spare time or if I'm allowing myself the time, I will then spend extra time on there just checking out what people are up to and commenting and responding and that sort of thing. So that's what's working for me. I also find that it's nice to choose a specific time in the day or week where you're actually allowing yourself to be on social media. I have some friends, some of them who are working for themselves like I do. They allow themselves 15 minutes in the morning over breakfast to look at social media. Some people just do it in the evenings. I know a lot of you have your laptop open while you're watching the TV, maybe with the kids, or they're doing something on their own devices, and maybe that's your social media time. It's not a crime. It's not bad to do, but I'm just trying to be more mindful about when I'm actually doing it, and that works really well for me. All right, the other thing that I'm going to talk about is reducing disruptions generally when you're trying to get good work done. Now, I have an iPhone, and what I have done with all the apps that I've installed is any time when I'm setting up the app or getting a new app, when they ask me, do I want to allow notifications, I say no for every single one. No notifications at all. The only thing I have notifications turned on for are messaging apps that I use actually to message people about work or my family. So I have SMS message notifications turned on, of course. I have the Facebook Messenger app notifications on. Sometimes I turn them off for a short period in the day, but I do have them on generally. And there's another tool that I use to communicate with the people I work with, which is called Slack, and I have those notifications on too. So those are the only ones. Generally speaking, for all other apps, I don't have notifications turned on, no sound popping out, anytime something new happens. I don't have the little red bubble with the number of unread messages on there unless it's one of those first three that I mentioned. They're the only ones. I have no email notifications popping up on my screen. All of that just helps me reduce down the distractions during the day. The other thing I do, if I'm going to spend the next hour doing some sort of substantial work, I don't just put my phone on silent. I actually put it into do not disturb mode, because when it's on silent, it still vibrates, at least mine does. I know I can change that setting, but I actually do want it to do that sometimes. So what I do is I go in and I turn it on to do not disturb mode, and it means that I don't get the vibration, I don't get the ringer going off at all, and it allows me to stay in my work mode and not get distracted. Now, when you're in Do Not Disturb mode, you can allow certain people's calls to get through. So it will stop the sound of calls coming in through your phone, but you can allow certain people to bypass that. So if you've got kids with phones and you want them to be able to reach you anytime, you can allow those phone numbers to get through the do not disturb. You can allow your mother, your father, someone you're looking after, your kid's school perhaps, whatever it is that you choose, you can allow them to get through the do not disturb setting. You can also allow alarms to go off as well. So if I have an alarm, I have my phone in do not disturb mode completely overnight, and I've actually set that up on a schedule. So I think it's 9:30 at night, it goes into do not disturb mode, and it doesn't come out of do not disturb until 6:30 a.m. The reason I do that is because I have a number of friends and contacts who are overseas, and they will send messages through my nighttime, which is their daytime. So I don't want to be disturbed in the middle of the night. So I have do not disturb on, and it works really well. But it will still allow any alarms that I might have set to go off even during that period of time. It's really brilliant. I really love it. It took me a while to actually realise that that was how it worked and I could make it work for me. So that's a really, really useful one. The other thing that I do to reduce disruptions in my day is to set alarms. Now that sounds really strange and counterintuitive, but one of the things that I found I would do is if I have to go somewhere or do something at a specific time, I would be constantly looking up at the clock to check whether it was time to go or time to do the thing or time to call the person. I'd constantly be checking the clock, and it was a huge distraction. So what I do, and if you are ever in person with me, you can have a look at my phone. The list of alarms that I have is ridiculous in my phone, which are set up for all the things that I need to do in the day. So I'm recording this after lunch on a Monday, and at about 3:30 or so, I need to go and pick up my youngest son from his school. So I do not need to keep checking my clock to see what time it is. Do I need to leave yet? How much longer have I got? I just have an alarm set which will go off at the time that I need to get ready and go. And I usually set the alarm 5 minutes early so that I've got time to put my shoes on, find my keys and go out the door. That makes me relax a lot, which I know sounds really odd, but it really does help me to relax knowing that I don't need to keep checking what time it is. Now, I have alarms set for school pickup, school drop-off, waking the kids up in the morning if they haven't already gotten up. I have one set for when I need to take my youngest to tennis, one set for when I need to take and pick up my son from basketball training, one when I need to leave for my run on a Monday night, another when I need to leave for my run on a Saturday morning. I have one to leave for the basketball match on Saturday. I have endless alarms set up on my phone, and I set them up as regular ones if they happen each week. I don't need to reset them all the time. It says every Wednesday at 4:30, depart for tennis, and I'm done. I have some other ones which I turn on or off as needed. Get ready for a podcast interview is one of them. I'll just set that up the day before, make sure it's there, and then I'm ready for the person that we're going to, chat with on Skype. So that's something that really helps me to relax. All right, last couple of things. I knew this was going to be a long episode. I'm already up to nearly 50 minutes, but hey, I'm passionate about this stuff and I really hope some of it will help you as well. And do tell me if you try any of these and you give something a go and you find it's really helping you. It may take a little while to implement and get it going and get into a routine, but I'd love to hear from you. All right, so the last couple of things, I mentioned at the beginning that one of the things that I find helps my productivity is to do batching of tasks. So this is where you group similar tasks together and do them all at the same time, and then it's kind of done ahead of time for the next time you need it. There's a lot of time in there. So things like this batching tasks can make things quicker to do. You only need to set the thing up once. And for me, my headspace stays in the place it needs to be for that task, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to give you some examples of batching that I do in my home life and also my work life. I'll use podcast preparation and recording as one example. So for instance, my process roughly for doing a podcast is to think of the topic, write an outline for the podcast episode, and that might be very detailed or not very detailed, depending on what the topic is. If it's an interview, I will also write out some suggested questions, although we may veer from those eventually, but I'll have something there planned. And then the next part after that is to record the episode. And the next one after that is to edit the recording. Now, each of those three things, so brainstorming topics, writing outlines, and actually recording, are things that, I can get in the headspace for brainstorming topics. So I might brainstorm topics for 20 upcoming podcast episodes. I might not do all of them, but I'll have a list there of things that I can possibly do. Preparing outlines, I'll choose one of those topics and I'll write an outline for that topic. I find it's really good if I've got 2 or 3 that I know I'm going to do in the near future. I will actually do the outline for 2 or 3 at once because I'm in the same sort of headspace, work mode when I'm doing all of those together, and I'm not chopping and changing the type of task that it is. The next stage is recording, and if I've got a few solo episodes planned, I will actually record 2 or 3 back to back, depending on how long I think each one's going to be. And if it's interview style podcasts, I will actually book interviews in fairly close together. At the end of this week, I've got 3 scheduled over 2 days. So I will do those all together. And then after that, I will actually edit all of the podcasts, probably 3 or 4 episodes. I'll edit them all at the same time. And the editing for me is very minimal. Usually it's topping and tailing with intro and outro music and adding an intro to interview ones, but not a lot else. So minimal editing. But doing that all at the same time, I find really helps. It might involve, other examples might involve things like lesson planning, to think of, a topic that you want to do with your students and then to break it down into an outline of, units of work or lessons, individual lessons, and then doing the lesson planning. That to me is really good when I'm doing that, to just kind of do it all at the same time, the lesson planning itself, getting granular and writing out the step-by-step process. In my home life, I batch things like the mixture that we put into our breakfast smoothies. There's like 3 or 4 dry ingredients that go into those, and I found that each morning I'd get out all the boxes with the chia seeds and the almond meal and the cacao and all these separate things. The oats would come out of the cupboard, and then I'd put that into the mixer, and then we'd make this breakfast smoothie for 3 of us in the morning. And then the next morning I'd get all those things out again and do the same thing. And I just thought, this is ridiculous. So I bought some little containers with lids, and I now have like 6 lots of the smoothie mixture made up at any given time. I get them all out on a Sunday, do a batch of these things, and then they're ready for the whole week. So that's really, really useful. Things like school lunches, you can make a big batch. Well, for me, I make a batch of sushi rolls for my eldest son because that's what he likes to take to school. And I make like 3 or 4 days worth on a Sunday, and it's just done. Meal planning has been a massive one for me. I recently came to the conclusion that realistically in our house, there's, 20, 25 meals that we have which are the same, and they're just on rotation. Some of those meals are on high rotation. We have Taco Tuesday every Tuesday. And some of them are less frequent. We might have a roast dinner every month or so. But really, it's the same meals all the time. So I actually took half an hour or so, maybe an hour of my time. I set up a new calendar in my Google Calendar, which is just for meal planning. And I wrote down all of the meals that we have on a regular basis, and I basically filled 5 weeks worth of meals. Now, I don't go and do shopping for all 5 weeks at once or anything like that, but the meals are decided. And for me, this is a huge thing. Taking the decision-making process or need away on a daily basis is huge. So I've done weekly meal planning for a long, long time, but this is next level for me, and it's really, really good. I've just been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and I'm loving it so far. I know for the rest of the month what I need to shop for and what I'm going to have next week, and I don't adhere to it totally all the time. It's not strict. If I want to switch meals over, of course I do. Sometimes we're not home one night, but I figure if it's at least there's a plan in place and I've got something to fall back on if needed. So I can highly recommend batching similar tasks together. get into the habit of doing that if you can. In my week now, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening is my time for getting a lot of home domestic things done for the whole week. And that really helps set me up for a productive week. The last thing I'm going to talk about is outsourcing, and this is getting help from others, and this could be other people or other things, tools or resources that help you achieve the things that you need to do. Things that you can consider outsourcing to someone else can be things that you don't like doing, that you have to do, but you don't like it, things that you don't have time to do, things that you are not good at, or things that you should not be spending your time on. And the reason for doing this is that it can free up your time to do the things you should be doing or the things that you want to do. Now, it doesn't always have to cost money to outsource things. You can do it in lots of different ways. So you could pay someone to come like I do. I have a small garden. I do not own a lawnmower, and I have someone come once a month who mows the lawns and he tidies up and he takes away all the garden rubbish. I don't need to deal with that myself. And for me, it's peace of mind, it's done, and I'm totally happy to pay him for that time and, what he does. And I just don't need to think about it. It's on autopilot now. So it's brilliant. I don't come home and think, oh my gosh, the place is a mess. I need to go mow the lawn or do the garden. It's something that I don't have much of an interest in doing, and I don't have a lot of time to do. So I'd rather just have it done by someone else. You could, though, trade jobs with other people. I have a friend who's a hairdresser. She works out of her home, and she gives someone else a haircut each month, I think it is. And in return, the person that she trades with is a massage therapist, and she gets a remedial massage once a month from this person. So it's perfect for both of them. They don't need to exchange any money, and they're both happy, and they're both offering each other a service. Things that I trade in inverted commas with other people are things like carpooling. So my son goes to basketball training on a Monday night. His friends' parents pick him up and take them both my kid and their kid to basketball training, and then they go home again. And then at the end of the training session, I go and pick both of the boys up and I take them both home. Much better use of time than both of us going back and forth to the same thing, and we live very close together. It's really good to consider the real cost of you continuing to do a job that you shouldn't be doing or that you don't like to do. I heard this great example on a podcast, and I can't remember where it was from, so I'm really sorry. I can't, what do you call it? I can't tell you the source of the information and quote where I got it, but the example was someone was talking to another person, his friend, and the friend was doing his own web design. Now, the friend is not a web designer. He just happens to have a website, but the friend was doing his own web design. And the friend said to him, why are you doing your own web design? He's like, well, I don't have enough money to spend on a web designer to get this done. And the first guy said to him, well, what are you worth? What's your fee? If you were going to go out and work somewhere, what is your fee as a trainer or whatever the job was that he does? Let's just say, for argument's sake, that he earns $100 an hour in a high-paid trainee or consulting job, which is possible. And the friend says to him, so are you a great web designer? And the guy goes, no, I'm not a web designer. I'm just really average at it. It's a struggle to work out how to do things sometimes. And so this guy said, so basically you're happy paying yourself $100 an hour for not very good web design work. And the guy's like, yeah, you're right. I should be paying a web designer who might cost less than that to do the work that they are actually good at and they're actually trained to do, which frees his time up to go and do the consulting job for $100 an hour. Now, I've just picked that example. It could be anything, but if you wanted to, for instance, set up a teachers pay teachers store where that's going to end up earning you ongoing income each month, perhaps there's something else that you can get rid of to free up your time to allow you to do that. And eventually your ongoing earnings might outweigh, the thing that you were doing in the first place. Examples of things that I outsource, and they really range in personal life and work life. As I mentioned, outsource lawn mowing. I get the guy to do the garden once a month. That's brilliant. Something else I do is to do online grocery shopping. I get the bulk of my groceries delivered once a week. I do that on a Wednesday. It gets delivered on either a Thursday or a Friday, depending on what I'm doing that week. And then I have that, the groceries are there for me to use for the next week. And I've planned my meals ahead of time, so I know what I need to get. Now, for me, that's a brilliant use of time and money or lack of time. I'm not actually spending time. The other person, the shop, is actually spending the time for me. And I found that, if I go and do the entire grocery shopping myself, it can take an hour to an hour and a half by the time I've left the house, driven to the shops, gone there, walked around all the aisles, picked up the stuff, gone back for the thing that you forgot in aisle 1, gone through the checkout and driven home and taken the shopping in from the car. The online shopping I can do in about 10 or 15 minutes. I've got my order done and it gets brought to my front door. It gets taken into the house and put on the kitchen bench, and I had to do nothing of that. So I have saved myself an hour to an hour and a half of time just by doing my order online. Now, yes, there is a small cost involved because there's a delivery fee. I can opt to choose for a wider delivery window of time, and I pay $4 or $6, I think it is, for getting my groceries delivered. Now, because I'm saving more than an hour of my time, I equate my time to being worth more than $6 for that hour. So I'm totally fine with spending that $6 delivery fee. And look, this may not work for you. It might not be where you want to spend your money. But for me, that's just one example of a really good way of outsourcing something in my life to free up a little bit more time. Now, other things that you might do, bookkeeping, for instance. Someone once told me I would make a good bookkeeper because I'm good with attention to detail, but oh my gosh, I hate that stuff. I don't want to know about it. So I pay for a bookkeeper once a month to do all of the business bookkeeping. I get other people to look after it. I don't need to do it myself. I have staff in my business to take care of customer support emails or people who are having trouble logging in and that sort of thing. It's not the best use of my time. I could do that, but I need to be spending my time running workshops and devising courses and creating videos and so on. For some people, I know that getting one of those meal preparation or delivery services is a really useful thing. It's not for me. I like to cook. I would prefer to choose what I'm eating, but I know some of my friends find this super useful where you order a box which gets delivered to you. It tells you exactly what to cook. It provides you with exactly the right ingredients and so on. And some people even do those programs, it might be a weight loss program or they just want to eat healthy, where the full meal is already prepared and delivered and you just need to reheat it. If that's what is important to you, that would be a great use of saving time. In your teaching job, can you delegate anything that you need to do that you don't love doing? Can you trade tasks with someone else at your school, maybe another teacher? Or could you even enlist students to help you out? This is a great thing. I know a teacher, I think I mentioned it recently in a podcast, a teacher that I spoke to, she is responsible for setting up the audio technical stuff for the school assembly each week. And she has delegated it to a small team of students which have been handpicked, and they are learning how to set up the PA system, learning how to plug the laptop into the data projector when that needs to be used, and, learning how to set up cables and to fold things up and put things away at the end. It's a great thing for them to take on. So maybe that's something you can delegate to students to do. And there's probably other things in your class as well which are similar. Phew, so that's a lot. Hopefully some of that is useful to you. Like I mentioned, I really would love to know if you do any of these things already, or if you try any of these, or perhaps you've got your own cool ninja tricks that you use in your week to make things run more smoothly and to get more things done. So recapping what I talked about today, we covered the importance of respecting your time and consciously planning how to spend it. That was the first thing. We talked about emails, dealing with incoming and outgoing emails, how best to get that running smoothly, stop the flow of incoming emails first of all if possible. We talked about social media and taking control of that. We talked about reducing distractions, so turning off things like notifications on your phone when you want to get good work done. We talked about batching similar tasks together, and we talked a little bit about outsourcing as well. So homework for this week, I don't usually set homework on podcasts, but homework for this week is choose one thing from the list that resonated with you that you'd like to try and take it on. And my advice is to commit to it. You need to commit to taking something new on, maybe for a week or so, and be really strict with yourself. Try it out properly for a week. Do it every day or whichever thing it is, do it consciously and see if it will actually help and truly work. And tell me how you go. I'd love to hear it. Thanks so much for listening to today's show. If you'd like more help with using technology or other things, I'd love to have you inside the Midnight Music community. It's the online space that I have for music teachers where I share ideas about using technology through online courses. There are tutorials, there are lesson plans, there are tips and personalised support as well. If you want more information about the community and a special offer for podcast listeners, you can go to midnightmusic.com.au/podcast offer. The Music Tech Teacher podcast is hosted by me, Katie Wardrobe. You can find more information and links from today's episode at midnightmusic.com.au/54. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.